You probably think every can of sardines on the grocery shelf is doing your heart and brain a favor. After all, sardines are one of the most recommended foods for people over 55. They're packed with omega-3s, vitamin D, calcium, and protein. Doctors like me have been telling patients to eat them for decades. But here's something most people don't realize. After spending several weeks looking carefully at 7 of the most popular canned sardine brands sold in American grocery stores, I found that only 4 of them were actually worth eating. The other 3? They had issues that could quietly work against the very heart, brain, and bone health you're trying to protect. And the most surprising part is that some of the brands that failed were the ones I see in my patients' kitchens most often. I'm Dr. Edward Collins. I've spent more than 30 years in internal medicine, and over that time, I've sat across from thousands of patients in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond, who came in worried about their cholesterol, their memory, their joints, or their energy. And one of the simplest, most affordable foods I've ever recommended is the humble sardine. But what I've also learned, especially in the last few years, is that not all canned sardines are created equal. The brand you choose, the oil they're packed in, the salt content, even the lining of the can itself can make a real difference in whether that little tin is helping you or quietly holding you back. So before we go any further, let me ask you something. Have you ever stood in the canned fish aisle, looked at the wall of options, and just grabbed whichever one was on sale or whichever one had the prettiest label? Most people have. I've done it myself, and that's exactly why this matters. Let me tell you about a patient of mine. I'll call him Frank. Frank was 68, recently retired, and very proud of the fact that he ate sardines 3 or 4 times a week on whole grain crackers. His wife had read somewhere that sardines were good for the heart and brain, and Frank took that advice seriously. But when he came in for his annual checkup, his blood pressure had crept up noticeably from the year before, and his ankles were a little swollen. He told me, "Doc, I don't get it. I'm eating healthy. I'm eating fish." When I asked which brand he was buying, he shrugged and said whatever was cheapest at the warehouse store. We looked it up together right there in my office. 1 can had nearly 600 milligrams of sodium. He was eating 2 cans at a time. That's 1,200 milligrams of sodium in one sitting from a food he thought was helping him. The sardines weren't the problem. The brand was. Once he switched, his blood pressure came down within 2 months without any new medication. Now let me explain why this happens, because I think it's important you understand the why before we get to the list. Sardines themselves are a near-perfect food, especially as we get older. They're small, which means they're low on the food chain and contain very little mercury compared to bigger fish like tuna or swordfish. They're rich in omega-3 fatty acids, which research suggests support brain health, reduce inflammation, and may help protect against cognitive decline. They contain vitamin D and calcium, both of which become harder for our bodies to absorb as we age, and both of which matter enormously for bone strength. And because you eat the soft little bones, you're getting calcium in a form your body can actually use. But here's the catch. The fish goes into a can, and what goes into that can with the fish is where things can go sideways. Some brands pack their sardines in low-quality oils that are high in inflammatory fats. Some load them up with sodium to extend shelf life and improve taste. Some use cans with linings that may contain BPA or similar chemicals. And some skimp on quality control, leading to inconsistent omega-3 levels and, in some cases, traces of contaminants. So think of it like this. The fish is the gift. The packaging is the wrapping. And sometimes, the wrapping ruins the gift. All right, let me walk you through the 7 brands and what I found, organized by what really matters for someone over 55. I'm not going to name brand names directly because I want you to be able to apply this to whatever you find on your own shelf. But I'll describe each one clearly enough that you'll know exactly what to look for. The first brand I looked at is what I'd call a budget warehouse brand. You've probably seen it. Big multi-pack, low price per can, very popular for people who want value. On paper, it looks fine. Real sardines, packed in oil. But here's where it gets interesting. The sodium content was the highest of all 7, sitting close to 600 milligrams per can. The oil was a generic soybean oil, which is high in omega-6 fatty acids. Now, omega-6 isn't bad in moderation, but most older adults already get far too much of it from processed foods, and the balance between omega-6 and omega-3 matters a great deal for inflammation. Over time, eating this brand regularly may increase the inflammatory load in the body, which can work against joint comfort, heart health, and even cognitive function. This one did not pass. The second brand was a familiar grocery store name, the kind you've seen on shelves for decades. This one packed its sardines in olive oil, which is a much better choice. The sodium was moderate, around 300 milligrams. The omega-3 content was solid, and the company was transparent about where the fish was sourced. This one passed. It's the kind of can I'd be comfortable recommending to my own father. The third brand markets itself as wild-caught and sustainable. It's a little more expensive, often found in health food sections. I went into this one expecting it to pass easily, and it did. The sodium was lower, around 250 milligrams. The oil was a high-quality extra virgin olive oil. The fish themselves were larger and meatier, suggesting they were caught at the right time in their life cycle, when omega-3 levels are at their peak. This one passed with no concerns. Now the next one is especially important, because it's the brand I see most often in older patients' pantries. It's a well-known American name, often sold in mustard sauce or tomato sauce. Here's the issue. The flavored sauces dramatically increase the sodium and, in some cases, add sugar. One can of the tomato variety had nearly 400 milligrams of sodium and added sugars that, while small, add up if you're eating sardines several times a week. The plain, water-packed version of this same brand was actually fine. So, this one was a mixed bag. The plain version passed. The flavored versions did not. If you're buying this brand, stick with water-packed or olive oil-packed. The fifth brand was an imported European brand, often from Portugal or Spain. These tend to be a little pricier, sold in beautifully designed tins. I'll be honest, I was skeptical at first, because sometimes pretty packaging is just marketing. But this one delivered. Lower sodium, excellent olive oil, traceable sourcing, and the fish themselves were of noticeably higher quality. The texture was firmer, the flavor cleaner. This one passed. And here's something most people don't realize. European food regulations on canned fish are often stricter than American ones, particularly around heavy metal limits and oil quality. So those imported tins aren't just fancy, they're often genuinely better. The sixth brand was one of the smoked or kippered varieties. Smoked sardines have a wonderful flavor, no question, but the smoking process, combined with added salt for preservation, pushed the sodium content very high, over 500 milligrams in some cases. Smoked fish in general, when eaten frequently, has been associated in some research with higher risks of certain digestive concerns, particularly when consumed several times a week over many years. I'm not saying never eat smoked sardines. I enjoy them myself occasionally, but as a regular staple, 2 or 3 times a week, this one did not pass for older adults trying to protect their long-term health. And the seventh brand was a newer entrant to the market, one of those trendy brands with minimalist packaging and bold claims about being the cleanest sardines available. I wanted to give it a fair look, and to its credit, the sodium was reasonable, the oil was olive oil, and the omega-3 content was strong. The one concern I had was around BPA in the can line. The company didn't clearly state whether their cans were BPA-free, and for older adults, particularly those with hormone-sensitive conditions, that's something worth knowing. So I put this one in the conditional pass category, but I'd want more transparency before fully recommending it. So when we added up, 4 brands clearly passed. 3 had real issues, whether from sodium, oil quality, added sugars, or unclear packaging. Let me tell you about another patient, because I think her story brings this all together. Her name, let's say, was Margaret. She was 72, lived alone, and was very health conscious. She came to see me because her bone density scan had come back showing some early signs of weakening. We talked about her diet, and she told me proudly that she ate sardines almost every day for the calcium. But when I asked which kind, it turned out she was eating the smoked variety, several cans a week, for years. Her sodium intake was through the roof, which can actually cause the body to excrete more calcium through the urine over time. She was eating sardines for her bones, but the high sodium version was working against her. We made one simple change. she switched to a water-packed or olive oil-packed brand with low sodium. Same fish, same calcium, same omega-3s, but without the salt overload. 6 months later, her blood pressure had improved, her ankle swelling was gone, and her follow-up bone scan showed her density had stabilized. One small change, that's all it took. So what should you actually do with all of this? Let me give you some practical, realistic steps you can apply the next time you're standing in that grocery aisle. First, look at the sodium content per can. Aim for under 300 milligrams when possible. If you see 400, 500, 600 milligrams, put it back. Your kidneys, your heart, and your blood pressure will thank you. Second, choose sardines packed in olive oil or water rather than soybean oil, sunflower oil, or generic vegetable oil. Olive oil adds healthy monounsaturated fats and complements the omega-3s in the fish. Water-packed is also a fine choice if you're watching calories or planning to add your own olive oil at home. Third, be cautious with flavored varieties. Mustard sauce, tomato sauce, hot sauce, lemon, they taste good, but they often hide added sodium and sometimes sugar. Read the label. If the sauce version has more than 300 milligrams of sodium, choose plain. Fourth, when possible, look for BPA-free cans. Many quality brands now state this clearly on the label. If a brand doesn't mention it, that's worth a question. Fifth, don't overdo it. Sardines are wonderful, but 2 to 3 cans a week is plenty for most people. If you have kidney issues, heart failure, or are on blood pressure medication, talk to your doctor about how often is right for you, especially because of the sodium and the vitamin content. And sixth, if you're not sure, pick the imported European tin or the wild-caught label from a smaller company. They tend to cost $1 or $2 more, but the quality difference, especially for older adults, is usually worth it. I want to leave you with this thought. Eating well in your 60s, 70s, and beyond isn't about big dramatic changes. It's about the small, quiet choices you make every week. Choosing the right can of sardines instead of the wrong one. Reading the label for 30 seconds before you put it in the cart. Trading a high sodium habit for a cleaner version of the same food. These little choices, made consistently over months and years, are the ones that protect your heart, your brain, your bones, and your independence. They're more powerful than any single supplement or fad. And the wonderful thing is, they're entirely within your control. Sardines remain one of the best foods you can eat at our age. Affordable, shelf-stable, packed with nutrients your aging body genuinely needs. Just make sure the can you're bringing home is one of the 4 that pass, not one of the 3 that quietly work against you. Take a moment the next time you're at the store. Turn the can around, read the label. Your future self will thank you for it. I'm Dr. Edward Collins, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves.